generation to strategic focus on that kind of application. Yeah, just let me know. Just send me an email. All the Snickers we made, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Ms. Nations, Ms.
I'm
Craig,
glad
we're
you're
ready.
reading it, because I would.
I call us back into order. Thank you for allowing us that brief recess. Thank you, Mr. Wilson, for asking for it, because I really wanted to.
All right. Yes.
Thank you for that. Item 11 on tonight's agenda is public hearing and third reading of ordinance number 602, repealing the ordinances 295, 332, 365, and 373, the road user fee ordinances, and amending ordinance number 599, the fiscal year 22 budget ordinance, as to provide for a levy of taxes to offset the loss of revenue from the repeal of said road user fee ordinance and matters related thereto. I call us into public hearing for those matters. Hearing none, I'll close public hearing at this time. I ask for a motion and a second to constitute third reading of ordinance number 602. Motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Wilson. Do I have discussion?
Yeah, I have some questions about that ordinance.
Okay.
If you look at what the majority approved on the second reading, section 5 says the county is to implement the agreement with cities as shown in Exhibit B. But Exhibit B is blank. So this ordinance that was approved, if we're going to go to the final reading, it's going to have a big blank.
I would actually make a motion that we would remove the Section 5 intergovernmental agreement, just to purely keep this ordinance clean.
I'll second that.
I have a second on my motion. Councilman Wilson, second. Any discussion on that?
Okay, so this is what's come from second reading, which is section 5 is this.
Look at,
Which page are we doing?
the problem is we have several of these damn things in here. Instead of the one, we have two.
So
We have
602 first.
no,
And I made the motion that we remove it.
we have,
Just Section 5 in general, I'll make the motion to remove it.
we have different versions of the same
Yeah.
ordinance.
Take the intergovernmental agreement out.
And then the other thing is section B.
Well, first off, can I get a, yeah, any more discussion on removing Section 5? Hearing none, all those in favor to remove Section 5? All right, that's unanimous.
So I need a point of clarification here. We got three
Wilson.
packages. We're looking at the one here where Section 5 has a big highlighted black Exhibit B. I mean, I followed you in the spirit of that discussion, right? All right.
That was the one that came out of second reading.
Okay.
There's a markup one that's
Yep.
in red
Yep.
that I don't know how they got it, but that's not what it was approved.
Or, Mr. Attorney, could you explain that to us?
Yeah, sure. What went to your board package, or council package were three documents. One was a document that was a second reading document that you had laid out second reading. Another one was an amendment to that, because as council pointed out, Exhibit B on your second reading talked about intergovernmental agreement, which doesn't exist. So you voted that out, so that no longer exists. But I was trying to put in a governmental agreement into your ordinance, and that's what the markup is. And the idea I had is, okay, how are we gonna do this? We can't do it because we don't have an agreement. Well, we pass the resolution or the ordinance, and we want to have an intergovernmental agreement. The only way to do that would be to authorize the administrator to enter into a governmental agreement, and I wrote that language in there, but obviously just voted it out so you can get rid of the markup.
Well, I guess my point to it is that the answer is not necessarily to have the administrator represent the council would represent that, but I guess my question is this caused a lot of mass confusion today. Did you have any instruction to do this, or you did this all on your own?
I actually spoke with Mr. Hendricks numerous times. I know the IGA caused a lot of heartburn for Councilman said, I know the IGA caused some heartburn for you. It caused some heartburn for me. I had him help me look into every avenue possible. One of the big issues is if the IGA is what kills this ordinance, we don't have a plan for roads, and I'm not willing to sacrifice our roads in this county because we can't agree whether a municipality should or shouldn't. You know, the way I look at it is if at some point in time we say, you know what, let's work with the municipalities, I think that when that time comes, we can have that conversation. But to prove the point that it's two totally separate issues, roads are the issue, period. I just backed up on everything I had Mr. Hendricks do. That's the best way I know to say that.
You're gonna still bill us for those hours?
Yep, I wasted money, I apologize.
Well, Councilman Whitehurst, the idea was how do we keep this IGA in there, because you had it at second reading.
Right.
And without any guidance other than let's figure out a way of doing it. That was what I figured out. So it was an effort to continue on with something that was not going to work. The second reading with an exhibit there that didn't exist was not going to work. It had to do something.
I understand y'all's good intentions, but one of the things we got to be cognizant of as a council, this was probably the most contentious thing we dealt with on this thing, and that we decided at that point there was nothing there, okay? And then I feel like it was a little bit much to step out and start creating something that wasn't in the direction of council. Okay, council didn't direct to come up with a plan, or we didn't say to you, hey, come up with some sort of language. None of that was directed. Okay, and so that caused a little heartache for me.
It kind of was, because there was an intergovernmental agreement that was referenced in the second reading, which is where Councilman Said, if I understood him correctly, that was where you were jumping off at. So it was referenced, but there was literally nothing there. So then it was, okay, what does that language, and looking at the options out there. But again, that's why I made the motion to remove it, purely because I do not want this to hold up, an IGA should not hold up the bigger issue of roads.
Okay.
So having it in here was if we wanted to entertain the opportunity to extend it or something like that, but since it's not there, then we end up going back and negotiating anyway. And the only reason we would have extended it was for the opportunity to renegotiate one.
Correct.
So what basically happens now is if we collect money this year, none of the municipalities get a piece of it.
Unless we decide to negotiate with them.
Until we negotiate.
But that's something we'll do separately.
Look it up.
Two options that you could do. You could do, in the future, you could enter into a memorandum of understanding, because any money that you pass by this resolution today, whether it's whatever amount it is not going to be collected until next year. So you're not going to say, okay, we're going to give this money to the cities or share this money with the cities until after you actually receive the money. You're not receiving any money until property taxes come in. So the first money is going to come in, it's going to be a very small amount, is in December, and then the rest of January thereafter. So you could enter into a memorandum of understanding with the cities after this,
and that's what we discussed, right? And that's what we had discussed.
And I will point out, Councilman Whitehurst, that I also have provided you 5 different options that do not have an IGA in them at all. Language already taken out into consideration. So I put it in there. I tried to cover all the options that council might come up with. And so I had 2 open issues. Number 1, the amount of money that you're talking about, and number 2, how you do an IGA. And I tried to come up with a way to options that satisfy what council was talking about on all the different options that you might have. It's very difficult to do, and I understand.
Especially in the short time you had to do it, because this came out at 11:43 a.m. this morning.
Well, I had a conversation with Councilman Saino Friday morning. I understood that council was not clear on what that IGA red line was. So I attempted to give you options based on your second reading. You had 2 open issues after second reading. 1, what you do with IGA, 2, how much money. So I try to come up with all the options I can come up with. But obviously, it's council's decision.
All right, fine.
And we just, it's unanimously threw that IGA extension out.
All right.
Look it up.
I have another question.
Mr. Sada.
In section E, it says, budget ordinance to provide for the levy and collection of ad valorem property taxes in the amount of what?
Right.
Section E of which copy? The one that has the red letters in it?
The red letters is, just ignore them.
Can we throw that one away? We're good? All right.
The one you were looking at that had the meeting.
All right.
Here you go.
Completely muddily clear.
That's what the council majority approved the last meeting. Right, that one is on the
So we,
second page.
yep, we have to come up with a number.
Yes, that's correct. That is the blank, and that's the other one. So I have to come up with at least 5 different options for you using that, and you can come up with whatever you want. But that's, council does not vote on the amount to replace the
Right.
building.
Okay, that's the problem.
Correct.
So that's the problem. The other problem is, as amended, section 2, as amended to provide for the maintenance and improvement of county road system as set forth in Exhibit A. That's also blank. Exhibit A is blank.
It is, and, because, we don't have, a millage rate until we set this. Now, I have provided you, that you have, an Exhibit A and Exhibit B, for all the different numbers that you want.
Okay.
So really and truly, the million-dollar question, if you will, is truthfully, other than the wording, which we've looked at most of, other than the wording, how much money do we want, or do we feel is necessary to spend on roads in Pickens County? That's what the million-dollar question is. That's what the hardest conversation is going to be tonight, is to what level do we want to commit to roads in Pickens County?
So, Mr. Chairman, just
Mr. Wilson.
point of clarification. So, an individual road, standard usage, standard exposure to sun and weather, 25 years is the sort of extended life, right? So 20 to 25 is the general time period folks do a recycle or a repave.
Yeah, it's going to use a lot of variables there.
Right.
As
But
I'm
you
sure
can push
know.
it from a 20-year cycle to a 25-year cycle by going out there and filling in cracks and by,
That's right.
by fixing
And-
soft shoulders and potholes and things like that.
If you're addressing all of the roads, fully funded, you could perhaps extend it 25 more, some more than that.
But we've deferred maintenance for generations.
That's right.
And we've not done preventive maintenance for generations. So the preventive maintenance is where you get out there and you fix things as you fix the broken window before the neighborhood goes down.
That's right.
So we've not done that. So we have a period of time here where we've got to get the preventive maintenance in line, fix critical issues we got right now, and then put ourselves in a position for a repave every 25 years. So we've got a crisis right now today. So if a road only lasts 25 years, why is the discussion for anything other than a 25-year cycle? And how we get to that point? I don't. If we kick this can down the road further, it's going to be our kids arguing about us not having the courage to do something about it. And if 25 years is the life of the roads, and just the trust element associated with your staff saying, "Hey, this is 20 years, 25 years," the backup documentation all across that's available through widespread across the internet that 20, 25 years is a good cycle. Why would we discuss anything other than a 20, 25-year recycle? So I guess my point there is, how do we get to 6 million? If 8 million it says on here for the replanning cycle, but it's 6 million if we hope that the CTC funds will go to the county roads. Right now, a significant piece of that 2.2 million, which is a drop in the bucket, like Mr. Quinn over here says, certainly the state should be giving us a bigger piece, but let's just assume that we're able to advocate and Rex is able to advocate for more money, but right now we're spending 1.2 out of the 2.2 of the CTC money. Is that the case? 1.6. So 1.6 out of that, they spend the other million on elective state road projects. Is that correct? Okay, so we have the opportunity going forward to continue to advocate with the delegation for further funding and for potentially some influence with the CTC to do a combined effort, so we're all using the same list, same projects, same prioritizations. Okay, so 6 million.
Councilman Whitehurst.
I agree with what you're saying. We have dealt with this over many years. We set this road user fee at $20 in 1998?
Yeah.
2001.
2001, I'm sorry, 2001. And when I first got on council, I was like, you know, my experience in road construction with civil engineering, I was like, this is ridiculous. We aren't even close to covering our costs. The problem we run into is that we are capped by a millage cap that we can raise, okay? And so we can only raise so much. And then from that point, we have a chance to work our way up there. Now we've been told by Mr. Quinn that we're going to get $10 million from the state, and I sure hope he's right. My experience has not been that.
If we get it, then I'll match it.
Mr. Actually,
I told him I'd give him $100 if he could pull it off, but anyway, but my point is irregardless of all that, I think we need to try to really start addressing this problem. And as bad as the situation is where we were told by them that your road user fee is not legal, it's all the games to play with the state is all I see there. But I would be in favor of trying to get to 3.2 million, which I think actually is like 3.187, and that would give us at least a little bit more, because these roads are not going to get better by themselves, and what you find is roads is they start to go down, and there's a point in which the cost, the road drops drastically, and when that condition of that road drops drastically, it's not a matter of a repavement, it's a rebuild. And the cost of that goes up by like quadruple. And the problem is we got a lot of roads sitting right on the cliff right now that are about to be very expensive to rebuild. And we have just got to step up and address the problem. So that's what I would be in favor of.
so Mr. Hendricks, if I may, one of the things I asked you to look into as well, and some of this was from conversation, you know, there are other areas of the state obviously dealing with similar issues. I see in here millage cap and exceptions. Can you explain that, millage cap and exceptions to us? Because as Councilman Whitehurst said, you know, we do have a cap that would get us at right at that 3.2 million.
Yes, sir, and I've been working with that significant amount of time. Act 388 has a cap for what the millage rate is. So that, and Councilman Whitehurst, you're exactly right, that number is exactly as you stated it was.
Approximately 3.2 million according to this.
3.187, $971. That is that cap. However, that cap is in code 61320A. That's what it says. If you keep going and reading 61320, when you get to D, there is an exception to that. And that exception is that you can add a reserve millage in an additional amount above the cap. You have to maintain a reserve account. So if you pass this, it would be a reserve account in addition to the one. It would be a reserve account that you could go up to $6 million to do. So you have a $6 million revenue coming in, you spend the 3.187 in the calendar year that you pass the budget, that you pass it, and then you would have that other money, that other fund in a reserve fund for roads that's in a separate account just for roads that you can use the following year, and you can continue to do that so that you would have $6 million per year.
And that reserve is, it's second year.
That's correct.
It only doesn't apply until the next year.
That's correct. And if you think about it,
And is there limitations on what you can use the reserve fund for?
well, in your ordinance, you need to specifically say what that reserve is for.
Not just, it's for roads, but for,
Roads and maintenance.
okay.
If you look at the ordinance that I provided for you, the samples that I provided for you, there's one that I provided, which is 6 million with an IGA, and there's one that is 6 million with no IGA. That's written up at the top. That was the one that called. If you look at the exhibit A of that, it breaks down revenue and also breaks down expenses.
God, there's just so many things in here.
Now, so the following year, that reserve could fall off in the normal operating millage because you're allowed. So next year, if there were, you wouldn't be going back to the table every year, is what I'm trying to get at. Is that the way I understand this?
That's correct, or you can keep doing it in reverse. If your millage is a certain level, then you just can't exceed that level.
Right, okay.
So we would bump up to what would be equivalent to $6 million increase, and basically take $3 million and stick it into a budget. As we use this up, we can use that, and then next year we put $3 million in.
That's correct, and it works perfectly for these types of projects, because if you give our engineering department, our roads and maintenance department, $3 million and say, spend that this year, well, they're gonna pay the roads to do that, but you say, okay, here's another $3 million that they didn't expect they're gonna get. Hopefully, they will do some planning, and during that time period, spend it on projects the following year.
Use that window of opportunity to do the engineering for these kind of long-range projects and get contracts for volume buy for the next year, those kind of things. All right, economy is a skill.
But we don't have as a impact on the house, typical house in South Carolina. Or in Pickens County, I like it when we come up with this many mills, this is how much more you're gonna pay.
We had that somewhere, and I was trying to find it.
But I couldn't find it for $6 million. Do we have it for $6 million?
We have it.
We had that somewhere, I didn't.
Because,
Let me
man,
look real
I
quick.
just,
Is it an increase on folks with an average house with 3 cars? That's what we looked at with the other. It's $6 million, that average guy out there in his reasonable sized house and, 3 cars, will that guy see a tax increase? Or is it still flat for that guy?
A guy at 5.3 mils, a guy with a $150,000 house, 3 vehicles, it would be at 4611, which is a $14 decrease from what he's currently paying on his 3 cars.
Yeah, and then a $200,000 home, 3 cars,
6148. That's at 5.3 mils. That's not at the.
that's not at the
because
city.
there is for every vehicle, there's $20 you're coming off of.
Yeah, I mean,
Got
you're
3
already
vehicles,
paying
you're
$20 a car. Yeah.
He's paying 60.
You
And that
save the
goes away.
$60, and then it's the question is, what more do you pay? When y'all are done, can I look at that?
Thank you, Mr.
Can we
Sadie.
pass it back? Can we pass it back?
Huh?
Councilman Waters.
Oh.
That. I guess I can allow that.
Because that's my struggle.
So
That's where the
in
math
essence,
started
it's
making
those,
sense to me.
those people that have the higher value homes and the fewer number of cars are the ones that are going to.
Or the $1 million home and the $150,000 car. I mean,
But those people that have a trailer that have 2 cars are going to see.
So the customers of mine that come in and tell me that they're moving here specifically because our property values are so low, that the property values in Chicago were $36,000,
Yeah.
and they're moving here so that will pay for their McMansion, those folks will see an increase. I mean, you're gonna see an increase for your mansion out there on Kiwi, right? So to me, this is the opposite of what we've talked about in the past. Preferentially, every other increase like this we've seen would hit people that rent their homes first, because those tend to be the folks that are the lowest economic strata in the community. Generally speaking, 2/3 of those folks that are renting are unable to afford to purchase the house they're currently living in. So generally speaking, when government entities, particularly in this county, is talking about any sort of tax increase, it almost always preferentially debits the poor at a disproportionate amount. In this particular case, we're talking about the folks in our community that certainly have the means to do it. And I just hate to say this, but over and over and over again, my customers are moving here, retiring here, developing properties here. Over and over and over, unanimously, from wherever they're coming from, they're telling me that that the big reason for it was our atmosphere, quality of life, the people here, and I cannot freaking believe how low your property taxes are. So we're asking those folks to pay a bigger piece, and look what they've actually contributed to the community, which is a larger network of areas we had to provide services to, which was Mr. Stata's argument was earlier. These folks have moved into very rural areas of our community, asking for services that are very infrastructure intensive. And so what we're saying basically is the folks that have developed the most certainly are going to pay the most of this particular increase. I don't want to raise taxes, I don't want to do anything like that, but I don't want to do 2 other things. We can do a half measure here, and then hopefully next year we have the mandate to do it again. We can kick $3 million worth of roads and road service work down the road. I had talked about with the chairman here, my preference would be that that $3 million be catch-up stuff. In other words, going out there and filling in. Everybody in our community should see a piece of the road they live on fixed. A pothole filled, a soft shoulder taken care of, a stop sign put in a place where there used to not be a stop sign because you can do that. That $3 million could catch us up. to me, asking for people like myself that certainly can afford to pay, an extra $60, to pay an extra $60 so that the benefit of the entire community, I think this is this is the most ridiculously fair opportunity we have to do something for infrastructure, and there's just absolutely no reason we can't do it except for lack of political will, and I hope that that won't be the case.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
On this sheet right here, is this subtracting, is this the net?
No, that's just the actual amount of the increase. So what you gotta do is you gotta look at that.
And then back out $60 off of this. So someone that has a $200,000 home at 5.3 mils, their taxes go up $61.48 if they got 3 vehicles, and yet they get
3 vehicles go down.
But then they get $60 off their 3 vehicles, so they're going to pay $1.48 more.
So that's the break-even point, basically.
And then the ones that in the $300,000 range, they're going to pay about $30 more a year.
To fix our roads in one generation.
I've always been, raising taxes is not something we want to do. And one of my, I'm telling you, my big bugaboo about this is that we have not fixed our health care and the way we buy it. And it's costing us $1 million a year because of the poor way we buy health care for our employees. And I've been fighting that for 4 years. And now we're looking at trying to fix the roads, but I know there's another $1 million in there that we're not operating efficiently with.
I'm gonna go with you on that, but you told me over 4 years ago, we've been trying to fix the roads for how many years?
Oh, I know. And I don't think, and I think we have an opportunity right now, and I just, this is tough, but I would love to see that $1 million fixed, and I'd love to have this council say they're gonna fix that health care. And then maybe we can actually cut some of those taxes back. But for that amount right there, if we can actually do away and make a one-time decision and start actually fixing some of these roads. Now tell me, what's that gonna do for our roads people? I mean, can we get, I don't wanna be like the state with a whole bunch of money sitting there and nothing getting fixed.
Well, I can give you an example of that. This year we had, Vice Chairman, thank you. This year when I say this year, I actually mean in 21, so this past budget year, we put $4 million worth of funding on the roads. We did. Now, that's because during the early days before the IGA existed, we weren't spending money for a couple of years there, right? So we built up a reserve. So we put $4 million out there. So we've proven we can do that. We can handle that from a staff standpoint. We can do it again. We can do that every year. We're not going to be in the situation Mr. Quinn's talking about where we're like, well, we really can't. No, we got bids on jobs that size.
So, Mr. Administrator Ken Roper, right now we're to a certain degree helping Liberty. I mean, I don't think the Liberty folks have been able to apply the cash that they've been given to road projects, is my understanding. And we do a great deal for my community because my entire community is not associated with a municipality. So, any roads project is basically 100% in the county. 6 Mile is getting a service in a certain degree, either from the state or from us. So with the IGA, only to a certain degree is not having it is a negative impact on 2 municipalities. Clearly, the largest 2 population groups in the area. But what it comes down to here is that we have the opportunity to fix roads all across our community, and to a certain degree, not put an undue burden on the folks in our community that won't be able to carry that burden.
Well,
Is there something that I'm missing in the discussion?
To your point, though, I think that, or what the chairman was saying, we're separating those things out. It's two separate things. The IGA, something we can talk about later. Yep. What does that look like? What does that sound like, if it even happens? Right now, it's the funding mechanism to fix the roads that we're responsible for. And Mr. Roper keeps informing me that we don't really own any of the roads. All the property owners own the road. Yeah, they say own it to the center line. We're just maintaining all these roads.
What I was trying to kind of get clear in my head is that there are 2 population centers that aren't necessarily, because the IGA is going away. But we have the opportunity across the entire community to address roads projects on a sustained basis. Those are the only 2 areas that we're getting any money from us. that really was getting applied. I mean, Clemson and easily was using that money, is my understanding. So we're not really leaving anybody out that's not, to a certain degree, already positioned well enough to kind of move forward without this. So there's no debit. We're not benefiting one group to fight the other. Everybody's going to benefit from this, is my real point. Is that the case? The whole county gets something out of this.
It seems that the question you're asking has an answer in this body and not with me. But yes, it is a countywide program.
I'm asking it in the most convoluted way possible. I apologize for that.
No, that's fine.
Sorry.
We haven't addressed what the businesses' costs are going to be on this, but they're going to be significantly more than this.
What cost? I apologize.
The taxes on the businesses.
The property taxes on the
Property
business.
taxes on the
That's
business
right.
will be the brunt.
The analysis we gave you was just based on home values. But
So had the opportunity to talk to the trucker folks, whatever you want to call them, and they had done some studies over time about the economic impact of our roads and how they negatively and detrimentally impacted business profitability, transportation costs were increased, you name it. And this is back when they were sort of advocating for an increase in the overall gas tax. But the return that your average person out here is going to see is going to be sort of limited to what their vehicle kind of sustains in a given year. But the enterprises that work in the county should see an overall, positive effect on their revenues, just from benefits across the board and lower vehicle costs, vehicle maintenance, et cetera, wrecks, you name it. It's not going to offset all their internal costs, but there's certainly a payback period associated with what they're going to get in return for good roads.
Any other questions or discussion?
Do we need to make a motion to?
Well, we absolutely need a motion. And I don't know the easiest way to do that, whether it's adopting. I'll seek legal counsel on this one. How about that?
As I hear counsel speaking, the document that I provided you that has written on top of it, 6 million with no IGA, will be exactly what you're talking about.
And that includes, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, but that includes the reserve fund element of it.
And you look at today on that document, you'll see that the operating property tax, which is based on 5.3 million, the cap is 3,187,971, and then property tax reserve would be 2,812,029.
Gives us that.
For a total of 6 million.
Okay. This one right here, they wrote it to the top of it. Is it the one?
No, you need the one with no IGA in it. Okay. Well, no, that's just, no, that's the 3.2.
It's like 15 in here. All right, 6 million dollars. Okay, thank you.
I know
I
it's.
apologize, folks.
Does everyone know which document we're discussing?
We got a stack.
I gave you 9 different ordinances, but didn't know what to do. I tried to. So this is one of those.
Threw my cell phone across the room earlier today. Stuff like this.
Everyone knows which document we're discussing, right?
6 million, no IGA?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions, any other discussions? Would you like a few moments to peruse it?
We need a motion.
We do.
Can it be as simple as a motion to approve this particular form of the overall agreement?
I'll second your motion.
We'll make sure you state it to 6 million with no IGA in it.
Okay, so I move that we approve ordinance 602 in the form that offers $6 million in road funding with no IGA,
I'll second that.
with the reserve fund
That's how you
dedicated
get
to roads
6
and maintenance.
million, That's correct.
Okay.
Any other discussions on that?
Yeah, I want to explain why I'm not going to vote for it.
Mr. Sato.
I want my constituents to know why I'm not voting for it. There's a little bit of a history, and then I'll explain it. From 2002 to 2018, the county charged and collected a $20 road fee. That put $2.1 million of tax money towards county-owned roads. In 2019, the council changed that agreement, and they willfully took on the responsibility of another 250 roads in the city, 250 miles of roads in the cities, when they passed this IGA. So as a result, the funding that was going from the to the county roads went from 2.1 million to 1.5 million, because they were giving $600,000 to cities for city-owned roads. In June, the state Supreme Court ruled that road fees were illegal, and that caused two things. One is we had to stop collecting the road fee, so no money's coming in right now. This is the reason why we have to do something. And the deal, the IGA, where the county government was giving the city $600,000 became null and void. Okay, I argued we're the county government, we're not responsible to fund city services, not city police, not city trash pickup, not city roads.
That's why I made the motion.
Stop cutting me off.
Mr. Sada, this is a grandstand moment.
It's not a
That
grandstand.
has been removed
Point
from.
of order. Point of order.
Mr. Sada, that has been removed from this ordinance. That's no longer a topic of conversation.
It's not cogent.
First of all, when I'm speaking, I've got the right to speak up to 10 minutes twice, okay? I'm allowed to explain to my constituents why I'm voting no. It's at my discretion, not your discretion, to determine what I say. And you continually cut people off. Let me finish.
Go ahead, Mr.
It's going to take a minute. I don't think it's the responsibility of the county government to provide any city services at all. That's not our responsibility. There's talk of, once we get the money and raise taxes and get it, we'll renegotiate with the cities, and they may give the money to them then. There'll be no way for me to stop them if I vote for it now. So I'll back into something I don't want to do, which is to fund city roads by voting for this now, and then later on, they get a majority to give the money to the cities. That's not our job. We are so far behind on roads, we cannot give county money away to cities. So unless that money's put into a lockbox, and I'll tell you I wouldn't vote for a 9 mil tax increase, because that's basically what this is. But I would do something more reasonable. I'm not going to vote for it because I'm afraid that some of this tax increase will be ultimately, they've discussed it as a possibility, may end up in the hands of funding city services, paving city roads. That's not our responsibility. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Sada.
Point of clarification, Mr.
Mr. Wilson.
Chairman. So we've agreed to take the IGA out. IGA has to have 4 votes to pass in the future. And part of the agreement for taking the IGA out, I assume, was to address the concerns that Mr. Sada just stated. So right now, just to be clear about it, the reason he's afraid to vote for this is that we might have 4 votes on this board to give some money to the cities to take care of city roads. The issue that he's talking about is the cities have 6% of the roads in the city limits belong to the county. And a number of years back, the council agreed to give the cities 26% of our funding to address a 6% problem. We eliminated that when we got rid of the IGA, and now we've completely killed the opportunity to include the IGA in this. There's no lockbox in county government. The next iteration of this board can do anything they want to do. But I don't believe that there's 4 votes on this council to approve any IGA that's not to the benefit of the council and to the county. So my interpretation is you can find any kind of reason not to do what you got to do, but we need to fix these roads. And I, for one, have the political will to do it. I think I have the support to do it, and by God, I'm going to vote to fix our roads. You don't have to, but you sure as hell don't have to grandstand in front of the whole community and try to justify yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And I want to, for point of clarification, I don't make a habit of interrupting people. I go so far as to put hot topics on the agenda just because a council member wants to speak. In no way do I censor anyone, and I don't appreciate being accused of that. Just for the record, point of clarification. Is there any other discussion over the motion at hand over this ordinance to fix the roads in Pickens County without an IGA?
I will make a statement that I do not support taking the county funding for the city roads. And if there's any proposal like that, I won't vote in favor of it. And I wouldn't have voted in favor of this today if it was part of the agreement. Because it is irresponsible for us to take 250 miles of roads, which we did. And more of that was the implementation and understanding what was happening. But we have to fix these roads, and I'm sorry. But the council over the last 20 years has not done it, and we don't have a choice. And if we can get $10 million from the state that wants to come help us out, I'll be happy to entertain that when that happens.
And I'll match it if it does.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of adopting this ordinance with $6 million to go towards roads without an IGA, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? 5-1. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
I just had a thought epiphany.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we would need to, you had the public hearing to establish the annual millage rate without the numbers on there, so do we
Now
not
that
need to
we
vote
have
on
the
that?
numbers.
You do, you had the public hearing on number 10, but you never actually voted on it. You do have to probably, we would change this, to do it properly. I think about financial.
Mr. Greeno, if you could kind of, now that we actually have numbers,
Yeah, with the $6 million, and the value of the mill is approximately $600,000, that will equate to about 10 mills that will be added to the operations for the county. So currently you're at 53.4, so you'd have to add 10 mills to be 63.4 mills for operations. And that includes the $6 million, which is 5.3 mills for the rollback that we use to collect for the max that we can, plus 4.7 mills for the reserve that Mr. Hendricks talked about.
Slightly less than 10 mils though, right?
It's 9.97, so it depends on how you want to look at it. The auditor only uses one digit, so you could do the 9.97 up to 10 mils, and everybody can remember 10 mils, or you can do 9.9 mils, and you won't collect exactly 6 mils, even though it's not a science. So it's really what council wants to do. It's 9.97 technically, but they're not going to put that on the tax bill as 9.97. They'll either put 9.9 or 10 mils.
9.9 sure feels better.
it does, it does.
That's up to council. It won't equate to 6 million in theory, but it's up to council on the number they want to use.
It does.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind? Ralph, what, in your tenure in the finance department in the county has been how long? How long have you been
21 years I've been here.
In the 21 years have you been here, has the county done anything of this magnitude with regards to taxes, or have we asked the folks in the community to pay more in the time that you've been here? Has there been a tax increase?
Last tax increase, my recollection, was 2005 when we increased it. I believe it was 3 mills for the start of capital reserve fund.
Capital reserve fund going into some projects at that time, or was it just for the capital reserve fund?
It was just for the capital to get us back up to par on trying to replace our capital replacement. Okay. And council at that time, I think it was 2005.
So 16 years.
It's been about 16 years since we've had a millage increase overall. Now, that does not include the fire districts and stuff like that. Just a general across the board for every citizen. We haven't had a tax increase since 2005.
So just from an economics perspective, what's been the rate of inflation, do you think? What's an average rate of inflation over that last 15 years?
Yeah, I'd say on average, on an annual basis, at least 2%, if not 3% on average.
2 to 3%. The average increase, what would you think the average increase in cost of paving and road maintenance has been? It's been like college, in my opinion. It's been
Like 250%.
Yeah.
over that period of time, 250% increase in the cost of maintaining roads. So what people are looking at here is having to pay the piper for 20 years of not just keeping up with inflation, but not even coming close to keeping up with the actual increase in what it costs to own roads and maintain roads. So to me, the folks in this community are going to have to pay more now because they haven't paid it going along the way. And in my house, if I don't do the maintenance, I don't keep up with the windows, I don't keep the roof from leaking, eventually I'm going to not have a house. So like you just said, 2 to 3% of inflation, we didn't even bother to keep up with that with regards to our funding. The community grew, number of cars grew, we took on more roads during that time, right, from the state, and our level of funding didn't even keep up with inflation. It's time to do this, and I'm so glad that we did.
So I guess back to item 10 on the agenda, we had the public hearing. Now that we have the figures that we need, I guess the motion would be that we set the millage at 63.3, that's 9.9 mils.
If you want to do 9.9, that'd be
would be my motion.
63.3.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Councilman Whitehurst. Discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed? One opposed. Thank you, Mr. Sada. All right. Item number 12 on tonight's agenda is third reading of ordinance number 601, authorizing the execution and acceptance of a lease for Long Shoals Roadside Park. Mr. Hendricks, do you have an update? I know you were the last one to touch this.
Yes, sir. This lease has been edited, and we had some issues about one of the main ones was that they wanted us to provide security out there, which would have been read as us providing security out on sliding rock on shoals 24/7. And we couldn't do that basically for liability reasons. We agreed to have regular law enforcement like we do anywhere else, and so we were able to skip that hurdle. I would like to point out to council that this lease is a 20-year lease with the South Carolina Forestry Commission of Long Shoals Recreation Area, which is Mr. Administrator was talking about it earlier. It's a beautiful location down on Highway 11, close to the county border. If you haven't been there, you should go there. It's a 20-year lease with a 10-year additional option. The rent is $88 a year. That's what they came up with. And so we are getting this for 20 years with a 10-year option at a very low price. They simply couldn't maintain it. Parks and Recreation supported this fully. One of the things that we're also doing, and I think we've already done, is redoing the entranceways in there, paving the entranceways, so that's done. One thing council needs to be aware of, I had some concern about this. There's a term in there that either party can terminate this lease. That is their requirement when they lease anything, and they don't have any intention of doing that. However, council needs to be aware, and the administrator needs to be aware that if we had decided that we wanted to construct anything out there, it's theirs if they terminate the lease. So with that one caveat, I'm fully in support of this.
Any questions? I guess I need a motion and a second.
I move that we approve this.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chairman. Now, do we have any discussion?
This conversation kind of started because, I mean, piles of diapers and beer cans and busted beer bottles, and we're not responsible for cleaning it. They are, so we step on their toes if we clean it. The toilet was overfilling and basically vandalized and out of repair for a long time. And this is on beautiful Highway 11, the area where lots of tourism comes through. They stop at that particular area, and that's the foot forward we're putting, right? All right, so we're wearing flip-flops to a wedding, basically. All right, so that was the intent, is why you guys started this, and then we can police it, we can improve it, we can do what we need to with it. Sounds great.
Mr. Sada, I know this is very much in your district, in your area. Any thoughts or concerns?
No, I think the only concerns I have with our parks is we should focus the ATAX money on our parks instead of different times.
But as far as Long Shoals go, okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen. So we've already covered 13 tonight, so item 14 is the consent agenda. I have a unified dispatch plan from staff, annual updates, capital improvement plan, consideration of recommendation from Public Service Commission for provisions of sewer for the Grange subdivision, and consideration of a request from Library Board for expansion plans for the Hampton Library. If I can get a motion in a second, this will add it to the consent agenda, which will then go to committee log.
Motion.
Motion by the Vice Chairman. Do I have a
Second.
second? Second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, when will that committee meeting be? You know?
We have a call, I believe, tomorrow to discuss the CAL agenda for next week. We wanted to wait purposefully till after tonight to make sure there was nothing covered tonight. So I would say, depending on what Mr. Roper has pending and pressing that needs immediate attention, some of these items could be on as soon as next week. Is there something in particular from these?
No,
from these?
just wondering when our next meeting would be.
Yes, sir. All right, anything else tonight? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain an motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Feemster. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate all you do.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, you take care.